If you want to grade sports cards like the top 1%, there are only 3 things you need to understand. My name's Eric Michael, and I've been buying, selling, and grading sports cards since 2015. And one thing has become very clear. The top 1% of graders aren't guessing, hoping, or relying on feel. They follow a repeatable process that lets them see cards clearly and make consistent decisions. And that matters now more than ever because grading advice is everywhere. Centering charts, checklists, and now AI scanners. Most people trust these tools, send the card in, and then get mad when they get back a low grade. That's because information doesn't equal judgment. AI can point out flaws, but it cannot weigh them the way a human grader does or account for how grading companies actually think. So in this video, I'm going to break down the 3 ways to actually get better at grading sports cards like the top 1% so you can stop guessing and start experiencing actual good results. And at the end, I'll throw in a 4th bonus principle that trumps all 3 of them. I also put together a free PDF in the description that walks you through exactly what I'm going to talk about here step by step. So let's get into it. Number 1 is condition. So the way a sports card is graded is on 4 pieces of criteria, right? You have centering, corners, edges, and surface. Now, if we're talking about PSA, because most of the cards go to PSA, centering and corners are the most important. So to simply put it, any type of white chipping or a rounded corner, which is the 2 things to look for when you're looking at a corner, the card is a very high chance of not going to grade a 10. Any type of corner issues, for the most part, you're cooked. Just look at any PSA 10s out there online and see if you see any corner issues. It's very few to none. And the 2 things you're looking at when you're looking at a corner, is it a sharp right angle, right? And if it's not, it means the corner's rounded. Or number 2, does the corner have edge chipping? Usually this happens with colored corners. So if you look at Prism, for example, on the back of a Prism card, one of the corners is usually black. It chips easier as opposed to the corner being white. That's the corners, and almost as important is the centering. It can't be worse than 55-45, generally speaking. If your corners are like, they're good but not great, and your centering's 55-45, probably gonna grade a 9. But if the centering is 55-45 and your corners are perfect, much higher chance of that card grading a 10. My standard rule of thumb, if there's 2 things wrong with the card, probably not going to grade a 10. Edges are pretty easy to look at as well. Edges, for the most part, are the piece of criteria that has the least problems. And the last thing is surface. So surface is the trickiest, okay? So you kind of have to know what you're looking at. Silver Prism cards and shiny cards have more surface issues. A card that's shiny, it's going to scratch more. It's going to have little, what they call factory dimples. Knowing what to look for helps a lot when you're looking at the surface of a card online. When I'm looking at a card of Silver Prism, I specifically am looking for these dimples or maybe factory line. And once again, standard rule of thumb, if it has a small like factory line or small dimple, but the rest of the card is perfect, the centering's good, the corners are good, the edges are good, I tend to send it in, and more times than not, the card grades a 10. Obviously, I look for cards that are in great condition. And the last thing I'll mention is autograph. A lot of cards that get sent into grading are not autographed. With PSA, it's an option whether or not you want the autograph graded. You only get that autograph graded if it is perfect. Any type of little flaw, it's going to grade a 9. And if your card grades a 10, but the autograph is graded a 9, it screws up the whole value of the card and you won't be happy. So it's usually not worth it to get the autograph graded if you don't know what you're doing, because an autograph 10 and the card grading a 10 may increase it by 10 to 20%. However, on the flip side, if the autograph grades a 9 and the card grades a 10, it will crush the value. Nobody likes to see a 9. It'll probably be worth like 30-40% less. So those are the 4 pieces of criteria. The next thing I'll hop over to is the type of card and the age of the card. Knowing what cards not to grade. So generally speaking, thicker cards are no good for grading. Flawless, National Treasures, any card with a patch, I don't grade. When they're in the pack of cards before they get open, they move around and the corners damage easier, and so do the edges, and it's easier for an indent to happen in the card because it's thicker. It's not worth it. There's better options out there. And also older cards. A card of Aaron Judge from his rookie year, 2013, we're 13 years later at this point. There's probably a reason the card hasn't been graded. You really want to be looking for newer cards from this year, the prior year, or maybe the year prior to that. If you get an Aaron Judge card to grade a 10 that's 13 years old versus a card of Jaden Daniels that's 1 year old, you're making about the same amount of profit usually. And I see people try to grade cards of Tom Brady rookies and they end up coming back 6s and 7s. And there's a reason the card hasn't been graded, right? Grading didn't just come out. It's been around for a long time. So you want to try to avoid buying older cards. I'll do it once in a blue moon, but just understanding it. And I see so many people make that mistake. And if you think about it, pretty common sense to not try and grade a card that's 15 years old and expecting a 10. Number three, this is very, very important, is gem rate. All that means is what percent of cards get sent into PSA and how many of those get a 10. If you're newer to sports cards, you only want to be sending in cards that grade a 10 at least 40% of the time. And there's a website called gemrate.com. It pulls all the data from Beckett, from SGC, from PSA, and just shows you the gem rates of cards. So I gave an example of how to look at gem rate. So a 2024 Select Red Shock at a 249 Jaden Daniels number to 112. You could buy this card for about $90 to $100. A 10 sells for $300. The gem rate is 27%. A Red Disco Select at a 49 Jaden Daniels number 26. This card you could buy for $150 and a PSA 10 sold for $492. You're about tripling your money before grading. After grading all fees, you might double. That card, the Red Disco at a 49, grades a 10 90% of the time. Out of 21 sent to PSA, 19 of them graded a 10. So you can make the same amount of money with both of these cards. This one has a 27% gem rate. This one has a 90% gem rate. And I see so many people that don't follow the numbers and just blindly sending cards for grading without understanding this. These specific cards look kind of like crazy and the surface is kind of wild. They have a lot of surface issues, and that's the reason they don't grade a 10 a lot of the time. As opposed to Red Disco cards generally don't have surface issues. So just understanding gem rate is so key to making money. And number four, a bonus. And this is more of a mindset thing / a numbers thing, but understanding the numbers. So grading cards is very similar to playing poker. Phil Ivey, who's one of the best poker players in the world, he loses. It's just a matter of minimizing your losses and maximizing your gains. You're going to have bad days, you're going to have good days, but over the course of the long run, you're going to make a lot of money. So I broke down a very basic example of what grading sports cards looks like if you're newer, and you're taking a conservative approach, and maybe you're not the best. So let's say you buy 10 cards at $100 each. So you spent $1,000 on cards. Probably about 2 of them you're going to look at and be like, damn, I didn't see these flaws with the pictures. I'm not going to send those cards in for grading. 8 out of the 10 that you bought going for grading. And let's say it costs $20 a card to get graded. So 8 times 20, that's $160. That's your grading cost. And let's say you lose $20 each card that didn't go for grading. So you're down $40. And out of the 8 that went in for grading, 5 got a PSA 10. A PSA 10 is worth about $300 each. If you're doing this correctly, you should be able to about triple your money with getting a PSA 10. And they sold for $300 each. Those sold for $1,500. The 3 PSA 9s sold for $100 each. So that's $300. So your total investment at the end of the day for about, let's call it $1,200 after shipping and stuff. And your total return, so for the 2 bad raw cards, you sold them for $80 each. So you got $160 for that. The 3 PSA 9s, you got $100 each for that. So it's $300. And the 5 PSA 10s, you got $1,500 for. So $1,200 went out the door and $1,960 came back in the door. So you made about 70% on your money, roughly. Some of my students who are more experienced get an 80 to 90% gem rate, but it doesn't always work that way, right? Some grading orders are bad. Some are really good. Hopefully this makes sense. There's a free PDF in the description of exactly what I'm talking about. I wish somebody told me this stuff when I first started in 2015. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.